In the years leading up to Gaugamela, the world had become a stage for two extraordinary figures whose destinies were set to collide. Alexander, barely 30, had already conquered Greece, crushed Thebes, and forced the submission of a fractured Europe. His ambition was boundless, his mind a labyrinth of strategy, his courage unmatched in any army of the known world. Each campaign honed him, shaped him, and prepared him for a confrontation that would not just test his skill, but decide the fate of civilizations. Darius III, on the other hand, ruled the vast Persian Empire, stretching from the Nile to the Oxus. He was a king accustomed to power, flattered by nobles, confident in the might of his armies. Yet arrogance often masks weakness. Darius trusted numbers over intellect, tradition over innovation, and spectacle over substance. His army was immense, equipped with chariots, cavalry, and infantry in numbers Alexander could scarcely imagine. To the Persian king, victory seemed inevitable. The arrogance of empires often blinds them to the brilliance of those they underestimate. By 331 BCE, the two armies faced each other in northern Mesopotamia, near the village of Gaugamela. The flat plains offered no refuge, no mountains to hide behind, no river to slow an advance. It was a perfect field for Darius's strength. The vast army, the war elephants, the scythed chariots. For Alexander, it was a challenge that demanded ingenuity, audacity, and a clarity of thought that few leaders in history have ever achieved. Here, on this sun-scorched plain, two kings would play a game of strategy, courage, and psychological warfare, with the fate of empires hanging in the balance. Darius III's sense of invincibility was rooted not only in the size of his army, but in the history of his empire. Persia had survived centuries of challenges, from Babylonian rebellions to Greek incursions, and each time it had emerged victorious. This track record reinforced a dangerous belief that sheer numbers, coupled with experience, could overcome any adversary. On the morning of Gaugamela, Darius surveyed the battlefield with this confidence radiating in every gesture. The infantry stretched for miles, each regiment drilled to maintain rigid formation. The cavalry lined up like polished machines, and the heavy chariots bristled with blades meant to rip through enemy ranks. He positioned his war elephants at key points, not only to inspire terror, but also as living battering rams, each one capable of flattening Macedonian formations. Yet this overconfidence had a subtle flaw. Darius assumed Alexander would mirror the hesitancy of other Greek generals, underestimating him as a young king who had never been defeated in open battle. His arrogance blinded him to the Macedonian commander's innovative tactics and disciplined army. Persian advisors cautioned him, urging caution, yet Darius dismissed them, convinced that his empire's weight alone would decide the day. Every deployment he made, however precise, was based on past victories, not on the ingenuity of his opponent. Meanwhile, Alexander scrutinized the plain with extraordinary patience. He measured distances, analyzed potential obstructions, and imagined every scenario that might unfold once the Persian forces charged. Small rises in the earth, previously overlooked by generals, became hiding spots for units, giving him flexibility. Even the direction of the wind and the angle of the sun were taken into account. He knew that blinding dust and glare could be leveraged against an overconfident enemy. Alexander also manipulated perception. By leaving deliberate gaps in his formation, he made his army appear vulnerable, inviting Darius to strike decisively in the wrong place. Each placement, each reserve, and each maneuver had a dual purpose: to protect his men while exploiting the pride of the Persian king. Darius's arrogance, combined with a misunderstanding of Macedonian discipline, set the stage for a confrontation where numbers alone would not decide the outcome, and the battlefield would become a theater of strategy, foresight, and psychological mastery.
Alexander's brilliance was less about martial prowess than about anticipation and the meticulous orchestration of every element on the battlefield. Unlike many commanders who relied solely on brute force, Alexander approached Gaugamela as a grand strategist. He understood that battles are not just physical contests, but psychological tests, where perception can determine morale and timing can turn chaos into victory. His companion cavalry was not merely a striking force. It was a mobile, flexible unit designed to respond to unfolding circumstances. Hidden reserves were kept ready, their presence unknown to Darius, forming a secret weapon that could be deployed at the decisive moment. Deception played a critical role. Alexander deliberately exposed his right flank, presenting a vulnerability designed to tempt the Persian king. The ruse was more than mere feint. It was a trap calculated to make Darius commit his forces prematurely, stretching his formations thin and exposing weaknesses. Simultaneously, Alexander positioned his left flank to launch a swift, decisive strike, anticipating that Darius would fail to predict the timing and direction of the maneuver. The battlefield, vast and featureless, became a chessboard where each movement was premeditated, and every feigned weakness was a lure. The Macedonian phalanx advanced with extraordinary cohesion, each soldier's long pike interlocked with his comrades, forming an almost impenetrable wall. This rigid formation absorbed the initial shock of Persian charges, maintaining order while Alexander's cavalry executed flanking maneuvers. Unlike his enemy, Alexander maintained the initiative, dictating where, when, and how engagements occurred. His presence on the field amplified this control by moving among his troops, rallying them through both example and encouragement. He reinforced morale while sowing uncertainty among the Persian ranks. Alexander's foresight extended beyond immediate battlefield tactics. He anticipated that Darius's overconfidence would lead to mistakes in formation, coordination, and decision-making. Each deployment he made had multiple layers of contingency, ensuring that if the enemy overextended or panicked, Macedonian forces could exploit it immediately. Strategy, discipline, and psychological manipulation worked in tandem. By the time the Persian army realized the nature of Alexander's plan, the stage had been set for the young king to turn the field of Gaugamela into a trap from which few would escape unscathed. As the sun rose over Gaugamela, it illuminated two armies of starkly contrasting size, spirit, and purpose. The Persian army stretched like an unbroken horizon, a living sea of bronze, iron, and silk. War elephants trumpeted, their trunks curling, eyes wild with rage. Chariots lined up in precise intervals, their scythed wheels reflecting the morning sun. Cavalry units flexed along the flanks, poised for a sweeping strike. Darius, seated on his chariot high above the infantry, exuded confidence, signaling the first assault with a flourish of his hand. The Persian advance was a spectacle of coordinated might, yet its very scale became a liability. Communication between units was slow, and maintaining cohesion over such vast numbers proved increasingly difficult as the battle began. The Macedonian center absorbed the shock, disciplined and immovable. The phalanx, trained to perfection, advanced steadily, shields locked, pikes bristling, forming an almost impenetrable wall. This rigid formation absorbed the initial shock of Persian charges, maintaining order while Alexander's cavalry executed flanking maneuvers. Unlike his enemy, Alexander maintained the initiative, dictating where, when, and how engagements occurred. His presence on the field amplified this control. By moving among his troops, rallying them through both example and encouragement, he reinforced morale while sowing uncertainty among the Persian ranks. Alexander's foresight extended beyond immediate battlefield tactics. He anticipated that Darius's overconfidence would lead to mistakes in formation, coordination, and decision-making. Each deployment he made had multiple layers of contingency, ensuring that if the enemy overextended or panicked, Macedonian forces could exploit it immediately. Strategy, discipline, and psychological manipulation worked in tandem. By the time the Persian army realized the nature of Alexander's plan, the stage had been set for the young king to turn the field of Gaugamela into a trap from which few would escape unscathed.
The defining moment came when Alexander personally led his Companion Cavalry toward the heart of the Persian line. His attack was precise, surgical, and psychologically devastating. The Persian king, sensing danger for the first time, attempted to rally his troops, but the disciplined Macedonian forces had already surrounded the area, cutting off avenues of retreat. Soldiers who had fought bravely hours before now found themselves trapped, uncertainty and panic spreading like wildfire. Darius's war elephants, symbols of Persian might, became instruments of chaos. Their immense size, once meant to inspire terror, now trampled retreating infantry, leaving corpses and broken formations in their wake. Chariots, designed to break enemy lines, were neutralized by tightly held pike squares, rendering their advantage moot. The overconfidence that had led Darius to assume invincibility now turned into his undoing. Alexander maintained relentless pressure. Every maneuver was calculated to deny the Persians any chance of regrouping. Cavalry units struck at weak points, reserves were deployed to close breaches, and the phalanx advanced steadily, leaving no space for the enemy to recover. By mid-afternoon, the Macedonians had transformed tactical brilliance into total battlefield dominance. Darius, recognizing the hopelessness of the situation, fled. The Persian king's escape did not merely represent a tactical withdrawal, it signaled the collapse of command, morale, and confidence. Alexander's genius had converted what seemed impossible, a victory against overwhelming numbers, into a reality. The arrogance that had defined the Persian strategy now served as a weapon in Alexander's hands, ensuring that the Persian army's immense potential became a liability. The dust of Gaugamela settled to reveal a battlefield transformed by strategy, courage, and psychological mastery. Persian casualties were staggering, numbering in the tens of thousands, while Macedonian losses were comparatively minimal. Yet the battle's significance went far beyond numbers. Alexander's ability to turn foresight, terrain, and timing into instruments of victory demonstrated a mastery of war that would become legendary. Darius's flight shattered the perception of Persian invincibility. Satraps and governors began to question loyalty, cities hesitated in allegiance, and the administrative coherence of the empire faltered. Within months, Alexander would march into Babylon and beyond, systematically claiming the heartlands of the Persian Empire, his reputation cemented not through brute force alone, but through calculated genius. Gaugamela symbolized the power of intellect and discipline over sheer might. It proved that leadership, foresight, and adaptability could overcome overwhelming odds. Alexander's smaller, disciplined, and strategically minded army had triumphed over an empire that relied on size, spectacle, and tradition. The battle became an enduring lesson. Arrogance, even from the most powerful rulers, can blind leaders to danger, while strategic brilliance, combined with courage, timing, and adaptability, can achieve feats that appear impossible. History would remember Gaugamela not just as a clash of empires, but as a testament to the enduring power of human ingenuity in warfare. The clash between Alexander and Darius is remembered not only for its spectacle, but for the lessons it leaves behind. Power, when exercised without wisdom, can crumble. Bravery, when combined with intelligence, can achieve the impossible. And the human mind, capable of imagination and foresight, often outweighs the might of even the largest army. Alexander's victory was not merely a personal triumph. It reshaped the political landscape of the ancient world. Persia, once unchallenged, became fragmented and vulnerable. Macedon, once a peripheral kingdom,
became the epicenter of a new Hellenistic world. The battle demonstrated that leadership, strategy, and adaptability are more important than numbers, and that arrogance, no matter how grand, can be the seed of disaster. Even today, military scholars study the formations, maneuvers, and psychological tactics employed at Gaugamela. Alexander's audacity, foresight, and courage continue to inspire generations of leaders and thinkers. The battle stands as a timeless example of how intellect and daring can triumph against overwhelming odds. The Battle of Gaugamela stands as one of history's greatest clashes, a testament to the power of intellect, courage, and strategy over mere numbers. Alexander's genius turned an outnumbered army into a force capable of toppling empires. Darius's arrogance, which seemed unassailable, became the very weakness that led to his defeat. History remembers not just the victory, but the lessons, that foresight, adaptability, and courage are timeless virtues, that the mind can conquer what brute force cannot, and that one leader, armed with vision and determination, can change the course of the world. Gaugamela was more than a battle. It was the moment when the audacity of one man outshone the arrogance of a king, forever altering the destiny of empires.